What do you think about when you think about a successful country? You might think about Harvard and Oxford with their great stores of knowledge and research. You might think about the power and might of the US and Russian armies, or maybe the diplomatic clout of the Brits, or maybe even the melting pot that is the technological hub of Silicon Valley. But did anyone think about Baghdad? Probably not. But you would have 1200 years ago. Baghdad became the capital of the Islamic Empire when the Abbasids came to power, and thus began several hundred years of the Islamic Golden Age. The numerous suburbs covered with parks, gardens, villas and beautiful promenades, and plentifully supplied with rich bazaars and finely built mosques and baths, stretched for a considerable distance on both sides of the river. The great library of Baghdad, Bayt al-Hikmah, or the House of Wisdom, was built. Amazing scholars like Averroes, Ibn Sina, Ghazali, Kindi, Hunayn ibn Ishaq, and others passed through its doors and worked here. It was a true melting pot of ideas, just like modern-day progressive metropolises like New York or London or San Francisco. Baghdad attracted talent from all over the world, from India, China, the Christian sects, Europe, everywhere. People came here to learn. Politically, the Islamic Empire was a dominant power of its time. At a time when Europe was still in the Dark Ages, the Islamic Empire stretched from India in the east to the north of Spain in the west. It was a superpower of its age. Economically, the Islamic Empire was churning out all the latest technology of its time. Today's social media, online shopping, AWS, AI and machine learning, search technology, operating software are all coming from the USA or China and maybe Europe as well. And it is not a surprise, therefore, that they are the preeminent powers of our time. In the Islamic Golden Age, the latest technologies was coming from Baghdad and the other big capital cities of the empire. We're talking about the first programmable machine, an automatic flute player that was using steam and water. We're talking about optics, calculus, geometry, algebra, hospitals, medicine, surgery, biology, and many other foundational scientists that we have built our world upon today. But Baghdad and the Islamic Golden Age are long gone. Where are Muslims now? Unfortunately, Muslims have fallen a long way. On average, Muslims are about 20% poorer than the rest of the world, and many Muslims live under the breadline as well. So there's 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, about 25% of the world's population. But when it comes to things that matter, we are really underrepresented. The number of Muslim companies in the top 100 companies in the world? 1. The number of Nobel Prizes in the last 100 years won by a Muslim? 12 out of 950 awards. So 1.2% of the entire awards have gone to Muslims. And of those 12, 7 have been peace prizes. So not things for science and technology and other innovations. The top 100 films in the last decade, 2 Muslims have featured in that list. So how do we fix things? Simple. Make Muslims richer. But hang on. Before we try and fix something, let's try and work out why we're trying to fix it in the first place. Because we don't want to end up with something that is as unpalatable as where we are today. Let's just unpack this a little. What we know thus far is Muslims were doing great before, but aren't now. But the answer can't be a call for a return to the age of empires, because we just live in a different world today. I think the best way to think about it is, what is the kind of tangible outcome that we're trying to achieve? Because being wealthy is quite an abstract thing. What are the tangibles that results in? We're trying to fix things because Muslims are underrepresented in media, in politics and culture. Muslims are unfortunately overrepresented in prisons and lower income jobs. So raising the Muslim GDP is likely to move the needle on each of these tangible, practical things for the better. So that is the kind of thing we need to be aiming at. There's also a wider reason. Islam is a religion that promotes creativity, science, innovation. It's a religion that wants to contribute to the world, not just take from it. We need to get back to that. To find inspiration for potential solutions, I looked at examples of countries that have grown really fast over the last 50 years. So I looked at the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Israel, and looked at the secrets that underpinned their success. Here are the 3 key things that we can take away from them. In 1952, North Korea and South Korea were roughly equal economically, and both of them were economic lightweights really on the global arena. Fast forward to today though, and South Korea is a global powerhouse of technology, home to companies like LG, Hyundai, Samsung, and many others. Their secret? They bet big on tech and entrepreneurship. They bet big on innovation. Today, South Korea spends the largest proportion of its GDP on research and development in comparison to any other country in the world. So the take-home lesson? Get creative and get your family creative as well. And I'm not just talking ordinary creative things, they're great, but also creative things that really scale. So things like coding, engineering, science, these are actually creative things. Spend on people's education, on your education, your family's education. Get them into entrepreneurial things and really support that mix of creativity, science, technology, and entrepreneurship, because that's where the magic happens. Silicon Valley today is home to the likes of Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and others. And this is a tiny proportion of the world that lives here, but it has completely disproportionate influence on each of our lives. Some of the companies located here are literally wealthier on their own than several large countries combined. But 30 years ago, Google, Amazon, Netflix, none of these companies even existed. So what's the secret to this meteoric rise of Silicon Valley? The secret is Silicon Valley is a melting pot of billions of investment money, talent that has experience working at hugely successful startups, and so knows what to do at each of the stages of a company's growth. And there is a culture of entrepreneurship. It's celebrated. It's an acceptable thing to do. Crucially though, Silicon Valley focuses on the cutting edge of technologies. It doesn't just replicate what has been done elsewhere in the world. Startups here set the agenda in the new technologies of the world, such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, biotechnology, quantum computing, search technology, and self-driving tech. So the take-home message is unite with others, create that ecosystem, really focus on the big problems the world faces and try to solve them with those who share your mindset. The Israelis went from being a relatively poor country to one of the 25 richest in the world in just 50 years. The Germans too exited the Second World War in a really bad shape, but since then they've recovered to be one of the largest economies of the world. The crucial X factor that both countries have is their work ethic and productivity. Yes, they are equally investing in tech and have a great workforce like other countries, but the thing that sets apart the Germans and Israelis is their graft. It takes people in Germany 4 days to produce what people in the UK take 5 days to produce, as Greg Clark, an MP in the Houses of Parliament, noted. And the average workday in Israel is 9 hours, compared to about 7 or 8 hours in the UK. There is also a real national pride in both countries about the contribution that each person is making to the progression of the country. So the take-home message? Work hard and do it for a purpose and cause that you truly believe in. So there you have it, folks. 3 crucial ingredients for Muslims to really focus in on if we are going to have that chance of a revival. And those three things are: take risks, be entrepreneurial, let your creativity loose. And the second is that create that ecosystem and focus on the big hard problems that the world faces and try and solve them. And finally, we just all need to work hard and have a purpose to what we are aiming for. At Islamic Finance Guru, we are trying to do our little bit with the IFG.VC Angel Syndicate that we've created. IFG.VC invests in emerging startups and technologies. About 80% of our investments to date have been in black, minority, ethnic startups, with the majority of these being Muslims. Every month we aim to invest at least 500,000 into such companies, and each month that number is growing. And the hope is one of these companies can one day go on to be the next Google or Facebook. But look, we're just one company, we can't do it alone, we need your help. This is a movement that involves 25% of the world's population. It needs all of us to chip in. So if you believe in what we're doing, then please do subscribe to this channel and follow us and join this movement. And also, if you have ideas about what you can do really tangibly to contribute to this effort, please do comment below and let's start that discussion. Let's start this ball rolling, inshallah. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.